Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I'm your host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we are finishing off the summer of 2025. Yes, finally. It has been a long road, it's been a treacherous one, but we are finally finishing off the summer of 2025 with probably one of the most fantastic movies of the summer. I know, I'm sorry, I had to. We are going to be talking about the Fantastic Four, the first steps today. Just recently, we did a review on Superman, so we are rounding out, some of the big movies of the summer by talking about the Fantastic Four. Um, so, kind of getting right into it, we see that the Fantastic Four came out July 25th, 2025. So about like 2 weeks after Superman. So they gave Superman some time to kind of like breathe and stuff like that. But the Fantastic Four was one of the last big movies to come out for the summer. Until we got into like the fall and the rest of the winter. So it came out July 25th, 2025. It was directed by Matt Shakeman. The obviously genres action, adventure, sci-fi, blah blah, all that stuff. Um, Looking at the cast, obviously we got some familiar faces. We got Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. We got Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. We got Eben Moss Bachrach as Ben Grimm. We got Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. We got Ralph Ineson as Galactus. We got Julia Gardner as Shala Ball. Um, and that's kind of pretty much it, really. We got Ada Scott, which was the young baby that played Franklin Richards. We got Matthew Wood, who played Herbie. So relatively star-studded cast. A lot of these actors and actresses have been in plenty of other projects. Um, so definitely a great cast and crew overall. Now we're gonna go into what did some of these big, bad head honcho movie critic websites think about the Fantastic Four. So we saw for Superman that they gave them relatively positive scores. I mean, I think IMDb gave them like a 7.2. Metacritic, I think, gave them like a 68 out of 100. Rotten Tomatoes gave them an 83%. And then the audience score was like a 90%. So, looking at IMDb first, we see that IMDb gave it a 7.2 out of 10, which is basically relatively around where Superman was. So, overall, a pretty good score from IMDb. Let's see if they give us a little snippet on why they did that. Uh, so, reviewers say the Fantastic Four First Steps is a visually stunning reboot with strong performances, particularly from Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal. The film is praised for its retro-futuristic aesthetic, impressive visual effects, and engaging family dynamics. However, some critics note issues with pacing, underdeveloped characters, and a somewhat predictable plot. Despite these criticisms, the general consensus is positive, highlighting the film's potential to revitalize the Fantastic Four franchise with the MCU. Overall, relatively good review, relatively good summary. We'll definitely touch upon, some of the pros and cons later in the episode. But overall, it sounds like IMDb gave it a relatively good score, which is a great start. Um, Looking at Metacritic, we see that it gave it about a 68 out of 100. So overall, all the scores here are in the green. So maybe Metacritic was a little bit nicer to Superman, but their scores are generally around the same variety. So overall, it looks like Metacritic is in agreement with IMDb. We see the Wall Street Journal giving it a 90. We see the Telegraph giving it an 80. San Francisco Chronicle giving it a 75. Um, so wow, the New York Post gave it a 38. Okay. All right. Yeah, so we see the scores are definitely varied, between all the websites. But overall, IMDb and Metacritic are giving it relatively good reviews, which is great. Finally, we have the big head honcho of the three, and that is Rotten Tomatoes. So we saw Rotten Tomatoes gave Superman, I believe, a certified fresh score of 83%, and it had a popcorn meter for the audience at about 90%. So, according to Rotten Tomatoes, this movie does beat out Superman by a couple of points. We see that it is certified fresh at an 87%, and we see that it has a popcorn meter at about a 91%. So we see that overall, critics and audiences liked Fantastic Four a little bit better than Superman. I mean, statistically. We'll get into like box office and stuff, and then pros and cons later. But statistically, according to the scores, we see that they liked it just a little bit more. Um, Overall, the critic consensus says that benefiting from rock solid cast chemistry and clad in appearingly retro 1960s designs, this crack at the Fantastic Four does Marvel's first family justice. The audience says that the Fantastic Four takes the world by storm. Thing, Reed, Johnny, and Baby, forging a new path for the bespoke family that, with these first steps, leads into cosmic action with retro-futuristic verve. So overall, both the audience and the critics agree that, again, just like Superman, this was a phenomenal film, and everybody was relatively overall positive with it, which is great. Uh, Now that we got kind of the reviews and everything out of the way, we're briefly going to look at the box office report. So we see for Superman, I mean, I believe the budget was like 215 or 225 $1 million, and we see that it made about 615 before it left theaters officially. I'm pretty sure the Fantastic Four has officially left theaters, unless it's still holding on to some theaters, but I think it finally left our theater. Um, so it was playing relatively recently, but I think it's officially done in theaters and the box office. So we see that the budget for this movie was about 200 plus million. So, we're just going to say about like 200 million. The box office was at $521 million. So we see box office report wise, Superman definitely made more money than Fantastic Four. Which is kind of interesting because Fantastic Four got better reviews and made less money, but Superman made more money and got worse reviews. I mean, I say worse, but not actually worse. Again, I mean, it definitely made back its budget and then it doubled it. But it is a little bit of a disappointing box office. Again, we could, blame COVID, we could blame streaming services, but it still is a relatively weak box office report. Which is a shame because, I mean, again, everybody seemed to love this movie, so, how come the box office report is so low? I mean, there was nothing wrong with the marketing. I mean, because for both Superman and Fantastic Four, they did a hell of a job, like, marketing both movies. But like I said, people just aren't spending their money at the movies anymore, unfortunately, like they used to. Prices are getting more expensive, and, these movies jump on the streaming services, like, after, like, a month or two of the movie being out. So, there's just more incentive to kind of wait and just watch it at home. But yeah, I mean, regardless of the fact, again, it made back its budget and it doubled it. So, overall, it had a pretty positive box office report. But, comparing it to probably some other movies of the year, it's definitely one of the, like, lower tier box office reports of the year. And, towards the end of 2025, we'll probably do, like, the top 10, like, best movies of the year, and we'll look at their, like, scores, and we'll look at their box office reports and stuff like that. So we'll see where this falls, in terms of that. So yeah, so now that we got all that wonderful bread and butter out of the way, it's time that we kind of dive into the main course, and we look at some of the pros and cons of Fantastic Four. So we're gonna start with the cons because obviously we always love to start with the negative. So we can end on a positive note. Excuse me, God, I got like all like stuffy and everything. I don't know why. So one of the cons that people found were underwhelming villains. So despite the presence of Galactus and Silver Surfer, critics felt the antagonists lacked depth and impact. Yes and no. I mean, yes, overall, I mean, they were able to defeat Galactus relatively easy, or at least, kind of prevent him from, doing any harm to, their universe and their Earth. Relatively quickly. I mean, Silver Surfer, she was somewhat of like an antagonist for like most of it, but we see that she kind of has like a redemption arc, like, towards the end of the film. So I think, the bigger Antagonist of the film is definitely Galactus. I think they did a good job, like definitely designing him, and portraying him as like a really, uh, existential like threat. We see that the Fantastic Four are like constantly panicking and they're like changing their plans like on a dime, like left and right, because he is just so unpredictable and like nothing that they're thinking of is working. Uh, yes, I mean it does feel a little underwhelming because I think we all kind of went in like expecting something different. Um, so I think we all kind of expected like Galactus to actually win, and then the Fantastic Four flee their universe and obviously like come into the MCU, and that's how they like join the MCU. But with him being defeated and them staying in their universe, it seems like their connection to the overall MCU will be more from like Doctor Doom versus Galactus. So yes, I could definitely see how it's a little underwhelming. But again, I also think they did a really good job of portraying him. The actor that portrayed him did a phenomenal job. His design was phenomenal, and he still was a very overpowering, menacing force in the film. Regardless of threat or not. Um, Another con that people saw were some script issues. So some viewers noted uneven pacing and a story that occasionally leans too heavily on exposition. Um, I would disagree with this. I mean, I don't think that the movie had any pacing issues, to be honest. I think it was paced relatively good. I'm not exactly sure what exposition means, to be honest. But I don't really think there were any issues with the script, to be honest. I think the chemistry between the actors was phenomenal. I think the pacing of the film was relatively good, and I didn't really see myself like scratching my head and like wondering like why they're doing this or whatever. Um, and a lot of the actors and actresses gave great performances and great speeches. So I don't really think there were any issues with the script, unless you're like a cinephile and you pay very heavy attention to the script. I mean, I'm sure there are some things that you could point out, but I think overall, I think it was a relatively good script. Another con we see are some high expectations. So while it's arguably the best Fantastic Four film to date, some fans still compare it unfavorably to The Incredibles. Um, I mean, I don't even think it's an argument. I think this is the best Fantastic Four film to date. No questions asked. It is interesting how they do compare it to The Incredibles, because The Incredibles is probably one of the best, if not the best, family superhero movie like out there to date. I mean, I think it's a little unfair to like kind of compare the two, because Incredibles is Pixar, and Fantastic Four is Marvel. So I two totally different like genres and respectives. Um, but yeah, I mean, it definitely did have some high expectations riding on it. I mean, again, because the track record for the Fantastic Four and their cinematic journey has been unfortunately relatively weak and disappointing. So it definitely had a lot on its shoulders, and I think it passed the mark like exponentially. I mean, we see that the critic reviews and the audience reviews are overwhelmingly positive. It did great at the box office. Well, not great. It did good at the box office, and it definitely is the best Fantastic Four film we have to date. I think it's very rewatchable. I mean, it's not on Disney Plus yet, so I haven't had a chance to rewatch it, but it definitely is rewatchable. I think it was, a great film overall. So yes, it did have some high expectations, but I don't think that's necessarily a con. If anything, I think it's a pro that they were able to kind of exceed everybody's expectations. Finally, the last con that we have here is limited MCU integration. So for diehard fans hoping for crossovers or deeper MCU ties, the film's standalone nature might feel isolating. Yes and no. I mean, yes, it is isolating, but it's isolating for a reason. And I think how they're going to introduce the Fantastic Four into the MCU is going to be through Doctor Doom. So I don't really mind the fact that there was really no integration whatsoever. I mean, we got a little bit of a teaser at the end of Thunderbolts, or the New Avengers. But I think for what the movie was for, I think they did a phenomenal job. And I mean, I don't really mind that there was barely any integration at all, to be honest. With that being said, now we could kind of move to the pros and end on a high note before we wrap up the episode. So, a couple different pros here. Again, I mean, this movie, in my opinion, definitely had a couple more cons than Superman. I mean, I think for me in particular, I mean, I think, um, you know, overall, I mean, I didn't really think of Fantastic Four as much as I did Superman, but I think it was phenomenal. I mean, some of the cons that I probably have with it is that, I think there were a couple different shots with like the CGI that looked a little wonky. Um, but that was kind of it, really. I mean, it was very on par with Superman, at least in my own personal opinion, when it came to the pros and cons. Like, I did not really find a lot wrong with the film. And again, this film has been out since July, and I still have yet to really find anything that's wrong with the film. Uh, One of the first pros is a stellar cast and chemistry. So Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Iban Moss Bockrich bring emotional depth and believable camaraderie to the team. They do a phenomenal job as the first family. Like, they really prove themselves to be capable of like showing what a mixed bag family looks like. I think they had phenomenal chemistry with one another, and I think they played off each other really well. And every character kind of had their own personal screen time with the other character. So I think that even brought more camaraderie and more depth to each of these characters. And I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, what can I say? They definitely do a great job portraying the Fantastic Four. Another pro, which I also agree with, is that uh, the retro-futuristic aesthetic was really cool. So set in a stylized 1960s Earth, the film's production design is a visually stunning and refreshingly distinct from other MCU entries. I think this was true as well. I mean, I was a little surprised that they were actually like going with the whole 1960s aesthetic when the trailers first dropped, but seeing it like on the big screen and just seeing the whole like retro futuristic aesthetic, I mean, it was really visually pleasing, and um, I think it kind of immersed me in the movie even more, to be honest. Uh, Another pro that we have here are family centric themes. So the story centers around familial bonds, parenting, and legacy, making it resonate with audiences beyond typical superhero fare. This is true. I mean, especially coming from the Fantastic Four. I mean, they're the whole idea of like Marvel's first family. So there would be a lot of family centric themes and ideas surrounding the film, especially Vanessa Kirby with her son Franklin Richards, and she gives that really powerful performance at the end of the film, as well as like in the middle of the film, when she kind of like addresses the crowd. So there are definitely some very family centric themes in the movie. We have a strong direction in visual, so Matt Shankman's direction and Jess Hall's cinematography elevate the film above standard CGI heavy blockbusters. Yes, I mean, although there were some scenes that weren't exactly perfect with the CGI, I mean, overall it was a beautifully visually stunning film, and they did a really good job. I think the combination of the retro futuristic aesthetic and the cinematography, as well as some really nice CGI, definitely helped this movie look very visually appealing, which just obviously made it even more enjoyable to watch. The final two that we have over here is a standalone appeal, so you don't need prior MCU knowledge to enjoy it, which makes it accessible to newcomers. This is where it kind of stands apart a little bit from Superman, is that they do kind of do their own little origin story. Like, it's not, the whole movie is not about like how they get their powers, whatever. They do like a brief like 10-15 minute like snippet in the very beginning of the film where they kind of like explain like who the Fantastic Four are, how they develop their powers, like who they are. um and I agree with the fact that this is a standalone film, so you don't really need to know anything about the overarching MCU to enjoy it. I mean, even though, yes, the Fantastic Four will be joining the MCU, you don't need to know any MCU knowledge before you go watch this film. You don't even need to know anything about the Fantastic Four before you watch this film. So it definitely is more appealing to newcomers, which also surprises me about the box office report, because you figure that more casual moviegoers would be seeing this movie, because they don't really need to know anything about the Fantastic Four. Uh, Finally, last but not least, we have the iconic score. So Michael Giacchino's music adds emotional weight and grandeur. I mean, yes, I mean the Fantastic Four theme is like one of the best themes of the whole entire year. It definitely deserves its flowers when it comes to awards, like when it comes to like iconic score and like music, because I think it was absolutely phenomenal. Kind of giving you that like that retro but yet futuristic sound. I think was really good, and overall it made some of those scenes that kind of like come alive and like have a bigger emphasis on them than they usually would. And that is pretty much it. So I think, looking at these pros and cons, if you're gonna take away anything, take away that this film had a star-studded cast and they had great chemistry. The retro aesthetic, and the future aesthetic was phenomenal. um, and a combination of strong direction, CGI, score, as well as like being a standalone film not really tied to anything else, made this movie fantastic. Sorry, I just it's the first word that comes to mind, so I just have to. Again, I wouldn't really pay too much mind to the cons. I mean, yes, I mean, these cons do have their merits, but it just really depends on like what you're looking for and like, what type of fan you are. But with that being said, that is going to do it today for today's episode on the Fantastic Four First Steps. So we have officially done it. We have officially finished out our summer of 2025. So going forward, any other review that I do will be movies that I've seen in the fall. And some movies yet to come, like for the rest of the fall and the winter. So there are a couple of different projects that I do have my eyes on, that I want to do reviews on. I recently saw Toy Story again in theaters for their 30th anniversary this year, so I would love to kind of like do a review on that, kind of like look back at that film. Uh, what else did I see? Uh, what was before that? Oh, the Demon Slayer movie, the Infinity Castle arc. I saw that movie the other day. That was absolutely phenomenal. I would love to do a review on that because we haven't done any anime on the channel in quite a while. And Alien Earth. I know I started doing a couple of different Alien reviews on the podcast when I saw Alien Romulus. But their first season officially wrapped up last night, so I will probably be watching the finale tonight, and then kind of going over like the first season as a whole and kind of like the show as a whole. So there definitely are a couple different things that I want to do some reviews on. So definitely follow us on Instagram and TikTok, all under Two Sons Podcast. That is with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. And then also follow us on YouTube at Two Sons Podcast. Again, that is with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. That way you can kind of stay up to date on all the updates and the posts that I do, and you can see what episodes are coming out, in the present as well as for the future. But like I said, that is going to do it for today's episode on the Fantastic Four. So thank you guys for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast. Until I see you guys again, have a good morning, have a good afternoon, a good evening. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. Stay hydrated. And enjoy the fall. Get cozy. Enjoy those fall vibes. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.